the Lost Island. Follow me on a thrilling trip over the huge Pacific Ocean as a crew of sailors find themselves stranded on an uncharted island, struggling for survival against both nature and an indigenous culture. Uncover the secrets of the Lost Isle with Midnight Murmurs, and make sure to press the like and subscribe button for more heart-pounding tales of adventure and intrigue. Chapter 1: The Storm. The sailors set off into the great expanse of the Pacific Ocean, their eyes locked on the horizon as they made their way towards their target. The water was calm and the sun beat down upon their cheeks, but little did they realize that a violent storm was forming in the horizon. When the skies began to darken and the wind built up, the sailors realized that they were in for a tough trip. The waves got larger and more ferocious, smacking against the hull of the ship with a loud noise. The men battled to retain their footing as the ship was tossed and twisted by the furious sea. The storm went on for what felt like an eternity, the sailors clinging to the deck for dear life as the wind howled around them. Lightning lighted the sky, sending an eerie glow over the water as thunder rocked the ship to its core. Despite their best efforts, the sailors were no match for the severity of the storm. The ship was smashed and broken apart, leaving the sailors abandoned and floating in the seas. And so started their fight for survival as they tried to keep afloat in the middle of the storm's unrelenting attack. But even as they struggled against the furious tempest, the sailors understood that their struggle was far from finished. Because little did they realize what lied ahead on the far horizon as they drifted ever closer towards an unknown and deadly end. Chapter 2: The Stranded. The sailors awoke to find themselves washed up on the coast of the island, their ship in splinters onto the rocks. They were alone, but for the palm trees swaying softly in the air and the sound of the waves lapping at the coast. They took stock of their predicament, examining their wounded and the supplies they had rescued from the debris. There was little food and fresh water to be available, and the island looked devoid of any traces of civilization. Yet they were sailors, used to hardship and tragedy. They got to work building shelter, gathering firewood, and searching for food. They learned to fish in the shallows and to hunt for fruit in the dense forest that covered much of the island. Days went into weeks, and the sailors fell into a rhythm of survival. They became thin and muscular, their bodies hardened by the sun and the salt air. They erected a temporary camp with rudimentary cabins and a central fire pit where they cooked their meals and congregated to tell stories. Yet they never forgot that they were stuck on this island, far from home and with little prospect of rescue. They scoured the horizon for any signs of passing ships, but none ever appeared. They resigned themselves to their fate, determined to make the best of their situation and to survive as long as they could. And so they lived, day by day, hour by hour, their thoughts concentrated on the chore of keeping alive. They studied the rhythms of the island, the ebb and flow of the tides, the patterns of the winds. They found beauty in the simple things: a sunset over the sea, the sound of a bird in the woods. In this manner, they began to love the island, even as they wished to leave it. They knew that they might never escape, but they also knew that they had each other, and that was enough to sustain them in their time of need. Chapter 3: The Indigenous Tribe. The sailors discovered the indigenous people as they investigated the island's rich surroundings. The tribe was unlike any they had experienced previously, with black skin and tattoos covering their body. They held spears and arrows, their gaze keen and untrusting. The sailors realized they had to be cautious. At first, the tribe kept their distance, eyeing the newcomers with distrust. Yet when the sailors sought to connect with them, they progressively started to warm up. They exchanged food and drink, learning about one another's cultures and languages. The sailors realized that the tribe had lived on the island for years and had their own beliefs and practices. Yet, the harmony was short-lived. While the sailors sought to explore the island, they mistakenly crossed into the tribe's sacred zone, which led to a violent clash. The seamen battled heroically, protecting themselves against the tribe's ferocious onslaught. In the end, they were able to negotiate a peace pact, but the experience left them rattled and on edge. From then on, the sailors realized they had to be extra careful. They couldn't let their guard down as they traversed this perilous new environment. Yet they also realized that they had won a vital ally among the tribe. Together, they might just have a chance against the trials that lie ahead. Chapter 4: The Hidden Caves. The sailors stumbled into the underground tunnels, their interest piqued by the unknown treasures that may be waiting for them beneath. They proceeded forward, plunging into the depths of the caves, with only the low light of their torches to guide them. The tunnels were perilous and deadly, with jagged rocks and small corridors that threatened to imprison the sailors at every turn. They continued on, unmoved by the treacherous surroundings, motivated by their passion for exploration and adventure. When they explored deeper into the tunnels, they uncovered unusual and fascinating objects, vestiges of an old civilization that had long ago departed from the island. The relics were unlike anything they had ever seen before, detailed and gorgeous in their design, yet infused with a feeling of otherworldly power. Yet the sailors soon understood that they were not alone in the caverns. They could hear the faint murmurs of voices echoing through the caves, and they knew that they were being watched. They pressed on, their pulses pumping with terror and eagerness, unaware of what horrors lurked ahead. Eventually, they exited into a magnificent hall, replete with bizarre and amazing goods beyond their wildest expectations. It was a moment of amazement and wonder as the sailors stood riveted by the antique treasures before them. Yet their moment of victory was short-lived. Then, they heard a tremendous rumbling sound, and the earth beneath their feet began to tremble. The sailors understood that they had to flee the tunnels soon, or risk being stranded forever in the dark and hazardous depths. With a sense of urgency, they rushed back into the caverns, the sound of their shoes reverberating through the darkness. They emerged into the brilliant sunlight, gasping for oxygen and grateful to be alive. The sailors recognized that the underground tunnels held many mysteries and perils, and they knew that they had just scratched the surface of what the island had to offer. They swore to go farther, inspired by their unquenchable curiosity and their need for adventure. Chapter 5: The Ancient Ruins. The sailors came across the ancient ruins with surprise, marveling at the complex architecture and fascinating items. The stones seemed to tell of a rich history and civilization that had long been forgotten by the rest of the world. As they went deeper into the ruins, the sailors began to unearth more secrets. They uncovered hieroglyphs engraved into the walls, relaying stories of a long-lost civilization that had previously thrived on the island. The sailors were awed by the degree of knowledge and insight that these folks had had. Yet as they explored further, they learned that not everything was good in these ruins. There were dark, hidden places that appeared to speak secrets of a more evil sort. The sailors felt a sensation of discomfort, as if they were trespassing on something sacred. Despite the gloomy vibe, the sailors proceeded to investigate the ruins, learning more and more mysteries with each step they made. They unearthed subterranean rooms and underground passages, loaded with even more antiques and valuables. Yet the farther they explored, the more they understood that they might not be alone in these ruins. When the shadows stretched and the light began to fade, the sailors realized that they had been wandering for hours. They regretfully chose to leave the remains for the night, but promised themselves that they would return soon to unearth even more of the island's mysteries. Chapter 6: The Island's Secrets. The sailors realized that they needed to learn the mysteries of the island if they were to have any hope of surviving. They had already uncovered hidden tunnels and old ruins, but they knew that there was more to the island than greeted the eye. They went out to explore the island further, cautiously crossing the hazardous terrain and keeping a vigilant lookout for any hazards that could lay around the next curve. As they ventured deeper into the center of the island, they began to unearth truths that they never could have imagined. They uncovered weird items, enigmatic markings engraved into rocks, and proof of a society that had long ago perished. They put together clues and indications, painstakingly uncovering the island's hidden past and mysteries. Yet as they probed further, they came to discover that the island was not merely a site of magic and mystery. It was also a location of danger and hazard. They found themselves chased by mystery individuals, and they understood that they were not wanted on the island. Despite the risk, the sailors continued, spurred by their determination to find the truth and escape the island's hold. They worked diligently, putting together clues and facts until they ultimately found the truth about the island's past and the reasons behind their own precarious condition. Once they peered at the whole truth of the island's mysteries, the sailors understood that they had to depart. They had to evacuate the island and return to civilization, where they could share their knowledge and insights with the world. Yet they also realized that quitting would not be simple. They had established enemies on the island, and they realized that they would have to battle for their existence if they were to make it back home alive. Chapter 7: The Final Showdown. The sailors stood at the edge of the forest, the dense vegetation blocking their vision of the impending peril ahead. They understood that this would be their final test, the decisive struggle that would decide their fate on this unknown island. The anxiety was apparent, but they steeled themselves for what was to follow. Carefully, they made their way through the dense undergrowth, their senses ready for any hint of danger. They could hear the beating of their own hearts, the sound of their breath reverberating in their ears. But most all, they could sense the presence of the adversary, a dark power that had held them confined for so long. When they emerged from the bush, they saw the enemy for the first time. It was a band of formidable warriors, equipped with spears and shields, their bodies painted with complex artwork. The sailors understood that they were outnumbered and outmatched, yet they refused to back down. The fight was ferocious and savage, the crash of metal and the thunder of war cries filling the air. The sailors battled with everything they had, their survival instinct kicking in as they avoided spears and swung their own weapons. It was a war for their life, a fight to break free from the constraints of the island's dark secrets. While the conflict rumbled on, the sailors began to gain ground. They battled with the passion of men who had nothing left to lose, desperate to emerge triumphant. And in the end, it was their persistence that won the day. They drove the enemy back, their own casualties increasing, but finally victorious. The seamen stood victorious, their chests heaving with exertion and relief. They had faced their biggest battle and emerged triumphant, breaking free from the powers that had held them captive on the island. They knew that their trip was not finished, that there were still many secrets left to unravel, but for now, they basked in the glory of their hard-won success. Thank you so much for joining us for this fascinating voyage on the Lost Elf here at Midnight Murmurs. We hope you liked the twists and turns of this narrative of survival, discovery, and the tenacious human spirit. Don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great stories like this one. And as usual, keep your ears open for the next Midnight Murmurs story coming your way shortly.